This past week, I asked you guys if you had any 100 Thieves related hot takes for me. So today we're going to react to some of those. But before we get into the video, if you guys enjoy this type of stuff, please hit that like and subscribe button. It lets me know that you guys are interested and you want to see more content like this in the future. The first hot take we have here is from Drift Mims from X. He commented, "We're not winning a single major, but we'll win champs." Now, this is definitely a hot take in my opinion because realistically, when we look at kind of the entire CDL right now, I feel like the only two teams that really stand a chance of winning a major are Thieves and FaZe. Now, obviously, he said at the end, we will win champs, which to me, that's the biggest tournament to win. So I wouldn't necessarily be upset if we don't win any majors, but we do win champs because that's all that really matters at the end of the day. But like I said, with the fact that there's kind of only two teams that have a chance to win a major, I feel like the Thieves are bound to get at least one. If they don't, that either means that they played really poorly or FaZe played really poorly in the same tournament. And that just seems really unlikely. I feel like FaZe, like I said, if it's not one of those two teams to win, that's what I mean by like those two teams played poorly. The only close team outside of those two that we've seen is the Vancouver Surge. And I'm not 100% sure that they're going to be able to get over the hump. I feel like they had an opportunity at this past major, but they played 3 matches back to back to back. And that obviously makes things really difficult as well. So I don't want to put it out of the realm of possibility for a team like Vancouver. But from what we've seen so far, the Thieves and FaZe are definitely the two that I could see winning any given tournament. And at some point, FaZe has to lose. You know what I mean? So I think with how the Thieves performed at this last major, that's going to be another one of those things that sparks them for upcoming ones. And ideally, we get at least one major on the board and then are also able to close out champs as well, because that would just be best of both worlds. And I don't know for sure if I would say I see us winning champs. Like I said, hopefully we will. But I definitely feel like when it comes to the we're not winning a single major part, I don't know if I would necessarily agree with that. And I do see the Thieves winning at least one of the 2 upcoming majors that we have just around the corner. For our next hot take, we are going to Sideburns from X, where he says, if 100T Val don't make it to champs this year, or even get to the semis, we gotta blow it up. We've been trying the same thing for years and spending big bucks for the bare minimum. And I'm going to be honest, I kind of agree with this one. I don't know if I would say this is too much of a hot take in my mind. I think I completely agree with what he says. We've been doing the same thing for so long and we're not really seeing the benefits. At some point, something has to change. I think this is even something that Nadeshot himself has kind of said. He got a little bit of backlash for it, I believe. But it's kind of the truth. I mean, if you're running an organization with the intention of winning esports, you can't just sit there and be stagnant and expect something to change. Like, I think the Bang move happened probably more so because they couldn't really afford to keep Bang. And I think switching to Xander really wasn't a huge change in my opinion. So you basically have the same core. I mean, you pretty much do have the same core. So at some point you have to start seeing some results. And the thing that's a little difficult for me is last year the Thieves won a stage, and that has kind of proven that this team is more than capable of winning at a high level. They've done it before. So I definitely think that if we go another year where the Thieves don't make it to champs, that's going to make it really, really difficult to kind of just sit there and say that we're just going to keep running it back with the same team. Now, I'm not the person to ask, what should we do instead? I don't know enough about the Valorant scene outside of 100 Thieves to really kind of make a judgment on that personally, but I definitely think that the Thieves have gone too long where something needs to change, because yes, winning a stage is a big deal, but you won the stage, you still don't make it to champs, and outside of that, the Thieves were kind of up and down. So at some point, things need to change if they don't start to go in the right direction. Obviously, I'm really hoping that that doesn't happen because I actually like a lot of the people on the roster, if not everybody on the roster. So it would be nice to see them start to find their footing a little bit and prove to all these, whether it's Thieves fans or even fans of other teams, that they are more than capable of winning at a high level. Up next, we have Viper from X as well. He said, when all is said and done, Ghosty is Octane Sam reincarnated. And this is something that I kind of agree with in some regard. I think Ghosty is basically like a new version of Octane. I feel like out of all the pros that maybe we've seen in recent history, like after Octane, I don't think anybody really comes close to Octane in that regard, quite like Ghosty does. And to me, as of right now, Dan is the type of player to be able to do all the things that Octane did. I think right now, though, with his age and with more of his inexperience, because obviously Octane's peak was definitely more towards like the end of his career when you look at his communication and you add that on top of the capabilities that he had when it came to just gunplay in general. So Ghosty, I think right now has a lot of the intelligence, and I think he has more room to continue to improve on his intelligence because of how young he is. I think right now what we're not seeing that was quite the same as Octane is more of the gunplay, and I don't mean that as like he's not a great AR. Dan is definitely a great AR, but I don't think he's quite on that same level yet, but I think he has more than enough opportunity to get there. And I think right now we're not seeing a ton of it because of who he plays alongside of. Obviously with him playing with Scrap, Scrap is a beast of an AR who is, I mean, I believe his KD is like up there with SMG players right now, and this is more of like an SMG game. So the things that Scrap is capable of doing, he just puts so much pace into the game for the Thieves that the style of play that Dan has to be, or if you relate it more to Octane, he is more of the slower, backline AR who is more than capable of playing fast. I definitely believe that. But I think the style of play that he is doing right now is more of that slower pace because of who he's paired with. And I think that's fine. I just think statistically, we're not going to see quite the same numbers as we got from maybe like Octane later in his career. But I think Dan has the potential to get to that point. All right. And lastly, we have a couple hot takes from Destiny on YouTube. Destiny started off with, we'll go one by one here. Some of their merch isn't worth what's on the price tags. And I would definitely agree for some of these things. I also understand that the Thieves have to make somewhat of a profit to be able to do what they do. So I can't be too upset with the pricing, but there's definitely some product that I would sit there and I would look at and I would say, I don't know if I would pay for that. I don't know if I would put my money into that specifically. And even if I do, sometimes I might look at it as, I don't know if that was worth it for that price. I do think there are a lot of things, though, that the Thieves have done historically that now are much better and I think are more worth the price than they ever have been. So it's a little bit of a toss-up, but I would definitely agree for specific items that the Thieves release that I would say maybe they could pull the price tag down. But I also have heard what Nadeshot talks about when it comes to how much effort they put in and how much craftsmanship goes into a lot of their product, that they are doing it that way so that way people feel like they're at least getting their money's worth when it comes to that. And I do think some of the product is that way. You have a lot of the varsity jackets or like the Letterman jackets, bomber jackets, whatever you want to call them. Those I think are on the pricier side, but the quality of them is really good. And so I kind of give them a little bit of leeway when it comes to something like that. But then every now and then, maybe you get a shirt or you get a long sleeve shirt that I feel like is maybe a little too high priced. And that's just me personally. Sometimes though, I think that way. I don't want to say I like to think that way. I think that way, but then I actually buy buy whatever it is that I want. And if it's something that I feel like is maybe a little too expensive, but I really want it, I'll buy it. I feel it out, see what it's like. And once I receive the product and I get to actually try it on for myself, a lot of times my mind kind of changes. So for me, it's very specific items, which Destiny said some of their merch, and I would agree with that. Some of it is a little more than I would like to spend on what you would say the quality is, but I think for the most part, they do a really good job. The next thing Destiny says is Envoy is the most impactful player. And I would completely agree with this. This is a tweet that I put out fairly recently. Nadeshot was also talking about it as well. And I completely agree. Envoy is somebody who I think gets way too much shade for how good of a player he really is. After this last major, there were people saying that Envoy should be dropped. And to me, you must not be paying attention to what's actually happening with that team, because in no world should Envoy be dropped. I don't think anybody on the team should be dropped, but there's no world that Envoy should be dropped. He was our best player in stage 1, and he had his ups and downs in this last stage, but the team won the minor tournament. The stage before that, we got to the grand finals of Major 1, and Envoy looked great basically the entire time. And every time the Thieves are winning, Envoy is always the one who kind of like amplifies the team, I should say. I don't want to say he's like the leading factor, but he amplifies the team. When he doesn't play well, and I don't mean statistically speaking, like if he just makes a couple minor misplays here and there, it hurts the Thieves a lot more because of how consistent of a player I feel like he is. And I said it before, I don't mean to put like all this extra weight on Envoy, because he does a really, really good job, but his play is so important to the Thieves. And I think a lot of people just don't fully grasp that. I don't think they fully understand it because of the fact that we're not always seeing the best stats out of him. But when he has insanely good stats, you can see that the Thieves are like impossible to beat. He could have a rough like statistic game and the Thieves could still win, but it's going to be a lot closer. But when he comes out and he plays insanely well statistically, the team is like unstoppable, it seems like, because you kind of know what you're going to get from Scrap and Hydra. And I think with Envoy, you know he's a dirty work player. You're going to get that type of work out of him consistently. So when you get the stats on top of it, you get the kills, you get the KD. I mean, it's insane for the Thieves what he's capable of doing. So I would definitely agree that in some regard, he is the most impactful player on the Thieves. That's going to do it for today's video. I hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, please hit that like and subscribe button. And if you're interested in seeing more videos like this, comment down below more of your guys' hot takes so we can do this thing again. I appreciate you all for watching, and I hope you guys have a good rest of your day. Peace out.